The situation in northern Syria is becoming more complex and tense, with Turkey's advance into the north of the country showing no sign of easing. But to that equation, we must now add the Syrian military, because accompanied by Russian troops, it's now assumed control of the Kurdish-held town of Manbij, very close to the Turkish border. We know Turkey's forces are amassing nearby, and Turkey's president says taking Manbij is a priority. But it looks like seizing that town would mean clashing directly with Syrian troops and possibly even Russian troops. Another particular flashpoint is the Kurdish-held town of Ras Al Ain, just south of the border. We've seen street-to-street fighting there today. This footage here from the Turkish Anadolu agency gives you an idea of how intense the fighting's been. Turkish-backed fighters are trying to replace Kurdish forces. And the BBC's Middle East correspondent Martin Patience is there.
Well, the Syrian town of Ras Al Ain is behind me, and throughout this morning we've seen heavy Turkish shelling, so that seems to be their response to the American sanction. President Erdogan, for his part, says he is not going to back down, that this offensive will continue until Turkey achieves what he called the ultimate victory. The situation you have on the ground is you now have Syrian government forces backed by Russia and Iran inside Manbij, with reports of pro-Turkish forces around that town. And the potential there for a confrontation between all these powers is real, and that's what everybody's worried about.
Turkey is calling this offensive Peace Spring. It says it's an attempt to bring stability to the region, which in the short term certainly isn't what's happening. Bearing in mind it considers the YPG, which is a Kurdish group within the broader Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, to be a terrorist organisation, and it says the YPG needs to be driven out. And on that point, Turkey has an aim to shift millions of Syrians currently in Turkey into a safe zone below the border between Turkey and Syria. It hopes this offensive can give it the territory to do that. But critics are warning that even if that was possible with the territory, taking Syrians who are currently in Turkey and placing them in this region could lead to ethnic cleansing of the local Kurdish population. Another major concern is what all this means for the Islamic State group. This graphic highlights camps where thousands of IS militants are being held in camps controlled by the Kurds. You can see they're spread all across the northern part of Syria. We can focus on one here. Ain Issa holds over 12,000 people. The Turkish military has been shelling it, which has led to some militants escaping. That is concerning the international community. Here's the French Prime Minister saying this Turkish offensive will lead to the inevitable resurgence of the Islamic State in northeastern Syria. Now, Turkey's offensive was effectively given the green light when Donald Trump pulled US troops out of northern Syria. A week on, now the president is imposing sanctions on Turkish ministries and senior government officials. He's calling for an immediate truce. He's also said, "I'm fully prepared to swiftly destroy Turkey's economy if Turkish leaders continue down this dangerous and destructive path." Bear in mind, this path was opened up by the Americans' decision to pull their troops out. Well, here's a bit of a development on the story from Reuters just in the last few minutes. We're told Vice President Mike Pence, well, we knew he was going to Turkey, but now we're told he'll meet President Erdogan on Thursday in Ankara. He'll urge Turkey to reach an immediate ceasefire and to work towards a negotiated settlement. We're also told Vice President Pence will reiterate President Trump's commitment to maintain punishing economic sanctions on Turkey until a resolution is reached. Well, the question now is whether this pressure will force Turkey to change tack.